Hello and welcome. I am Anna, and this is a new episode of Project Co, the podcast channel of Efecto Colibri. A channel inspired by words that start with co, community, consciousness, co-creation, co-evolution, and of course, colibri, which in Spanish means hummingbird. We have honest conversations with changemakers to explore mindsets and initiatives for positive change. The stories we tell and the stories we listen to have the power to regenerate our perception of ourselves and others. Stories regenerate. This is why at Efecto Colibri, we produce and distribute podcast content to inspire you to create a more human reality in harmony with planet Earth. Discover more at www.efectocolibri.com. Today, we are going to Esperança-Condurú ecological corridor of Southern Bahia in Brazil. Are you located? Lots of green, fresh air, birds singing, smells of wet earth. We have a lot to learn from nature. We have a lot to learn from communities that for years have been organizing themselves organically as a living organism. What is an ecosystem? What does collective action mean? It's the same thing, explains Paulo Sanjines, our guest today. Paulo studies how collective action of the local civil society organization ASMOBAN has improved critical life conditions in the Esperança-Condurú ecological corridor, an investigation for which he won Stone Soup's Award on Research in Social Innovation 2023. Today, we talk about ecosystem governance, collective action, and the values needed to make it happen. Paulo, it is a pleasure to have you on board with Project Co. I'm very, very excited for you to share your experience working and creating and collaborating. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Anna.
I'm wondering, Paulo, what is your passion?
My passion is nature, to be inspired by nature, to work for nature and with nature, and to be in a community that also takes care of itself and works together with nature. That's my passion.
Wow. What does nature mean to you?
For me, nature is the connection to life, is a teacher. It's a way of understanding myself better and to understand life in general. That's what nature means to me.
Life. Nature is life. And would you say your relationship with nature has always been this way, or has it evolved and changed? And if yes, how?
Sure. In a way, my relationship with nature has been this way since I was a little kid. I've always felt drawn to people that were more in tune with Earth. I remember talking with my mom when we visited the Titicaca Lake in Bolivia. That's where I grew up, in La Paz City, about the people that lived in the island of the sun. And I remember telling her, I was 8 at the time, and I was like, Mom, these people they feel really different from the city people. And she explained it to me in her own way, but now I understand that, they were living on their own time. They were not living on the, let's call the English clock kind of time. They were living with nature, with the tides, with the rain, with the sun, with the day to day. And that changes you in a way. That gives you a different rhythm. That actually gives you a natural rhythm. So since I was a little kid, I've always been drawn to people like this, or to be on the quote unquote wild. And since growing up, of course, I've gone also to the other side and also experienced how it is to be more in the capitalistic mindset and to be very stressed out about time. But I've slowly come to to how I used to be when I was a little kid. I now live in Southern Bahia, and the place that I live in, it's a UNESCO World Heritage because of its high biodiversity in vascular plants. So I'm constantly surrounded by nature. I've designed in a way. I've followed the path in my career to always work in the forest or around the forest, or work with people that do that. So yeah, I've somehow maintained myself in that path since I was a little kid.
True. It's so beautiful. Just listening to you brings down my rhythm, or it makes my rhythm more coherent, because having experienced both the rhythm of nature, which is human beings as part of nature, and the capitalistic, more hectic rhythm, which is considering human beings as the master of nature or something separate to nature. How has it impacted you, your well-being, and your personal development?
That's a very personal question that I would like to share, because that's actually something that did change my path over the past 10 years. When I moved out from Bolivia and I started studying and living in the, around the world, I was lucky enough to have those opportunities through scholarships and through people that invited me to study and work other places. I've come to moments in my life that push me to be very fast-paced, goal delivery oriented, and so forth. At one point, after I started working here, I realized that my health was going downhill, and it went downhill very quickly. Only 7 years ago, when I decided to leave my job at an NGO, where I was working almost 10 hours a day. I loved my work. I really enjoyed dedicating myself to it, but it came to a great cost for my health, and that directed me to nature again. And I healed myself without any medications. Of course, not on my own. I had people that guided me to do that. I suffered from a gastritis that I think it's a kind of a common illness nowadays. I understand the emotional reasons why that happened. I understand other of the reasons why that happened. I also understand the way back to it, to where I am right now. I don't feel any pain. I have used only either medicinal plants or good nutrition to heal me, as well as exercise and just a radical change in the amount of work, especially with the screen, with the computer screen that I now have. In a short, I think that would be how that pace, that changing pace occurred. And that was actually because of taking care of my health first.
This is interesting because it makes me think about how we are connected as individuals to ecosystems, no? We are basically part of ecosystems, and sometimes ecosystems are healthy, sometimes ecosystems are sick, sometimes they flow, sometimes energy doesn't flow, no? And then when I say energy, I'm referring to health, basically. So what you were saying before, which really resonates with me a lot, so thank you for sharing, is the importance of us listening to, I don't know if listening, but paying attention, no? And putting our intention to create a coherent reality, which, as you said in your example, no, like health, being too stressed, or having gastritis, or whatever symptom we may have is already an indication that something is not as coherent as it could be, no? So I find it very interesting that to start this interview and this talk like this, because at the end, one ecosystem is made out of many different individuals, different beings, connections. No, it's like a vivid organism. It's a live organism. So you study ecosystems. I would be very interested in understanding how you describe ecosystems. What does it mean to you?
An ecosystem, it's a dynamic set of relationships that are collaborating towards self-sustenance. They're collaborating towards resilience. They are collaborating for basically bringing out life from its very basic to its more complex forms. That to me is an ecosystem. You know, it's a group of living and even abiotic organisms collaborating together to provide some sort of either function or to provide it to themselves, so that they're self-sustaining.
And how do you approach the observation, understanding, and the study of ecosystems? What kind of ecosystems do you study?
So I started studying watershed ecosystems when I lived in Bolivia because of payment for ecosystem services, market, let's call it schemes, but they're really like a sort of like a market alternative to natural conservation. So it basically involves organizing maybe a water cooperative or any other type of institution that is going to take care of the distribution of the water that is being provided by the ecosystem. But initially, you need to recognize that the ecosystem, the natural ecosystem, the forest ecosystem is the one providing the water that you are then using for your business. In this case, the water cooperative is providing a business of service to the people having water in their home. So when I first graduated, I graduated in a more interdisciplinary mindset, but I lacked the understanding of how complex it is to deal with people. When you're dealing with a natural ecosystem, it's sort of easy to understand, there's a biophysical data, ecological functioning, and a series of natural processes that you can observe, and that somehow you will get to understand these have patterns, they repeat themselves. I can sort of project what's going to happen if we deforest here, if we protect these margins of the river, so forth. You can observe, you can the patterns, and you can project what may happen. But it's not so with people. So to answer your question, I am now in the past 11 years gone more in depth into what does it mean to first translate the biophysical, the ecological world and its processes to people, so that then we can actually begin to speak, recognize the value of that ecological process, yes, but then to have a dialogue so that we can, like Paulo Freire would say, we can problematize our reality. We can then understand together there is something that is changing here and we may have an impact on it. It's clearly having an impact on us, but we don't often realize it. The first thing that we may want to recognize is, look, we live in a natural environment. And like you said in the beginning, the capitalist mindset tells us this is something I can use. It's like an object. And for some reason, we believe this is unlimited resourcing. Now that I'm studying more of like human based conservation, I am now seeing the difficulty, the challenges of once you translate it, once people understanding, then you have that dialogue and you start problematizing your reality. How do you go about decision making? Which in ecological terms would be when all of the different organisms are in place and you have the right conditions to move forward, then you have all of these results, right? For example, the forest is old enough that now we have a good water filtration. We have a good amount of biodiversity that it's self-sustaining. Oh, this is wonderful. This is where we want to go. Indigenous peoples already understood this and will work with that older system, that older life, and will adapt to it. But we have gone the other way, too fast. So how can we now, after we start recognizing ourselves within this, how can we take decisions? How can we change our habits and start a governance that is based on these ecosystems, in the ecosystem services that are so like, now there are more people are familiar with this term.
And would you say we as humanity are ready to understand ourselves as part of an ecosystem instead of looking at ecosystems as things to be managed?
I've decided to work with a base, like the base, right? Militants from the base, people that are not in the like a high end, like a public service or NGO world. That's where I'm coming from. Where I work now, like a neighbors association, where I have the luck of being mentored as well by a militant leader, an activist that has been working with this for the past 50 years. I would say we are not there yet because our educational system has directed us to see life through a very practical, useful lens. So we see life as being something that is useful. This is something that Ailton Krenak, an indigenous leader and thinker, a Brazilian indigenous leader and thinker, talks about much better than I could ever talk about. He's dedicated his life, and he has this since he was a little kid because of his education, his upbringing. We Occidental thinking people that have come to believe that life is useful have a very long way to understand that life is not actually useful. Life is, like we were talking about, a teacher to us, and we are life, part of life. And we are just passing through this earth. There's no other real meaning to what we're doing here. We have to pay homage to life and be there with our community, with the people that we work with, to collaborate, to bring out the best values that we can as human beings. So these are things that I see need to be brought back all the way back to education. Otherwise, there is really almost, I don't know, like I wouldn't say there's no chance. For me, like my day to day is about hope and cultivating joy in what I do, even though I know that I'm going against a big wave of capitalism, racism, the patriarchy, all of these like three enemies, right? At least that's the way I see it, and that's the way that the people that I am with see it. They are trying to set us apart from this living organism that knows so much more than we do. So to make it short, in my answer, I feel that we can. I feel that we are not there yet. And the way to do it, for me, it's education. Yeah.
Totally. This is fantastic because at the end, this is exactly what you're trying to do with your research, no? To understand, to observe, understand, in order to be able to educate and export, no? To scale these good practices and this ancestral knowledge, which has been working as part of an ecosystem, no? Understanding ecosystems and looking at human beings as parts of this ecosystem. Let me read the title of your thesis to you because I think it really summarizes everything we've been talking about in a very humble way, well, in a very professional way, but it really sets the tone of the need that we have as a humanity and as human beings to be more humble, no? I go. Ecosystem governance in the tropics, a policy analysis and evaluation of collective action in the Atlantic forest of Southern Bahia. Please, Paulo, explain to us, how did you get there? Why are you researching this? And what have you learned so far?
Okay. After I worked in Bolivia, my biggest question was, how can you translate ecosystem services to literally to anyone that would care to take care of it, and especially for groups, civil society organizations, or perhaps larger groups. So I went to do a master's on the ecosystem services side in policy analysis. So more of the human side of the ecosystem services framework. So when I started working in Southern Bahia, I realized, wow, I live in a well-preserved region of the world, in the tropics, I would say in the Atlantic forest as well. One of the places that I've lived that has really secured its natural resources. And the funny thing is that it did that through the choice of cacao as being a cultivar, right? It's an agroforestry system that needs the trees to be there. So just out of luck, we come now to 2023. This cultivar has around 250 years old in this region. And we are still benefiting from this people that came before us that decided, yeah, let's really give this a try. And somehow they preserved all of these amazing resources that we can now benefit from. But as we are all seeing around the world, I think, land prices are going up. More people want to benefit from silence. They want to benefit from silent places in nature. They want to benefit from growing their own food if they have the abilities to do so, or at least from a very good source of water. But it is very challenging for us human beings, I feel, to get ourselves organized in an honest, humble way and collaborate by saying, look, these are my needs. I understand that those are yours. And I understand that that family's is these other needs. How can we all communicate so that our all community values, right? I'm talking about personal human values, right? Respect, collaboration, connection, all of these things that we strive for, joy, etc. How can we all put ourselves on the same platform so that we can understand that we are all valuing these things and that we have all of these needs and that we can somehow provide for these needs, but we cannot provide for these other ones. And so we will need help. We will need to associate ourselves with the public service, with a private sector, or with other people. And this is a process that I studied in a university, in my master's, before coming to Southern Bahia, that is called the policy process. And it's not about politics, as we know them, like partisan politics. It's about decision-making as at its best and how to observe that decision-making while you facilitate dialogue. And I'm not talking about me as the professional that understands policy process. I will map it out. I will understand it. I will see it and understand how is this happening already? How is this naturally emerging? And I could make recommendations that are significant, that are coherent, that are useful at this moment in time, because maybe from a year from now these things are going to change. But what I would love to do, and this is where my research comes to, my understanding is that when we use this tool, we are able to have clearer communications about what is it that we're doing for the community and how can we understand to see these changes within ourselves, within our community, so that we see, oh, we're going that direction. Is that the direction we all want to go? Yes. If so, let's continue. If not, let's pause. Let's see if our values are in check. Let's see if the needs are being met. Let's see if we have the resources to continue. And this is all talking about personal and community, a human aspect decision-making.
Fantastic. So you basically become the mirror so that communities and different members of the community can look at themselves and basically see if they're looking good, no? To make a metaphor. It's super interesting. How do you approach this research, no, and this observation?
In my case, I would be working with the association and two of the initiatives within the association that have people coming in from different places, right? So the association has this umbrella type of governance. It's been working for the past 12 years, on and off. The initiative that I work in directly and where I act with environmental education, with vegetable gardening, is called the Network of Vegetable Gardens. And this is part of the environmental side of the association, of the Neighbors Association. And there's another initiative that is called Feira Saberes y Sabores. So it's the flavors and saberes would be best translated maybe as a knowledge in the traditional way. And it's a fair. It's a fair that was created by women from that neighborhood that wanted to create a new way of income. So I will be looking at the community fair and the vegetable garden within the ASMOBAN and understand how through their meetings, right? So their dialogue about how they themselves manage their processes, manage their resources, how they themselves look at the ecosystem where they are. And I've chosen my micro basin that river goes through our community, through the neighborhood. And so that's the environmental part of it, and how this decision-making is also working together within initiatives and with our extended network, that being the municipality, NGOs around us, and our supporters, financial supporters. And if that collective action that is emerging naturally, if that is actually following that the purpose that it's set out to do. This is how I would do it. I would, like you said, observe, list down, and I've decided also not to have too many formal interviews, because this is just not the way that our community is accustomed to do things. They are more accustomed to pass on information orally and to summarize the next steps moving forward. So I'm going to be respectful of that, and I'm going to go with my recorder, and I'm going to just listen and observe what's naturally happening without putting in, my research cap and like directing answers or questioning, right?
Okay, fantastic. So you observe how they interact. You serve as a mirror so that they become aware of how they're interacting. They can decide if they're moving towards or distancing themselves from their purpose. And then when it comes to policy building, how do we continue? What happens?
Sure. I think that's like the most interesting part of it. I've come to understand this better outside of university, working with them, because when I was researching payment for ecosystem service at a national level, I understood, of course, policymaking is very concerned about, first of all, do we have enough resources? Second of all, who are we going to benefit? And third of all, is this going to be a popular type of policy? Or coming back to the resources, are we going to be able to monitor this? Are we going to be able to really understand whether it's working or not? When you go into a more local level, and one that does not have the resources that a government would, we are now looking into building our own rules that have to be flexible enough so that we can adapt to change, and that have to be significant enough that the people in need today are being impacted and benefited, right? From it, from the rules that we are creating, from the policies that we are creating internally. So through this observation, through this dialogue, and through in that case, me as a social researcher, and that with this award that will allow me, and I would like to make a very quick parenthesis. This is something that I had never seen before, awards given to social researchers. I feel that this is extremely important. I have been working on my own things for a while, and as a volunteer for the association for many years, because I understand this is my purpose. This is something that I want to pursue. But having this support will allow me for next year to not only follow and observe, as we've been talking about, but also to co-create with the association a way that we can register change in a more systematic way. Like, this is the key for us to move forward. If we don't have a map, we can go as far as our energies allows us to go. But if we have a map, and this is something that we are now experiencing in our day-to-day, when we have a clarity of these initiatives works for those goals and for this amount of people today, and what we are achieving is A, B, and C, we are able to communicate that to others. We are able to associate ourselves with others, and our governance starts to expand itself. So now we're going to look at new processes. Wow, now we're in partnership with a university outside of our country. That requires communication, that requires evaluation, that requires financial understanding of how to administer these new funds. That it's by itself, it's a process that can take us many months because this is all new to us. But a year from now, we've already practiced 12 months of this. Now we have processes in place. Now we have rules. And we as individuals have the understanding of tomorrow I'm going to come into the project and I have this and that task. But this is not growing into it as a bank would, filled with rules that are in place, set in stone, and that have be followed like a robot. Nothing against banks. This is something that they need to do. But in collective action that is natural, dynamic, all the way going back to the beginning of our conversation, nature, observing nature, we will go through moments in which we are going to have, like in the forest happens, a big tree is going to fall. We did not expect this, and we're going to have a huge opening that now we have to be very patient enough to start growing it back again. The same way that your skin heals itself when you cut it. As a community, are we ready, able to adapt to changes that may harm us? This is something that we need to start thinking about. And to summarize, to end my answer, the award is going to allow me to walk with them and to understand, to co-create these monitoring and evaluation tools that we need, and to really see how our processes are evolving. You know, it's like, and this is something that my mentor says all the time. Community development goes through the thinking, feeling, and actions of the collective intelligence. How can we see or understand collective intelligence? You feel it. We feel it in our meetings. We open, we say it in Portuguese, eu abro mão. I give up my own decision or my own desire because I feel that yours is at this moment more important. So let's go with that. And I'm going to be happy about it. That is collective intelligence moving. But that's so free and dynamic and flexible that you cannot really put it into a specific type of governance with very strict rules. So how can you provide a tool to this institution that allows it to observe itself as this natural, living, emerging ecosystem of people that work together with others, you know, so that it itself can then grow and learn without me being there, without Donna Jo being there, without any, like it just continues because it self-sustains itself. It understands itself. It learns from itself. That's that's something that I would like to get close to, you know, through the research. So I hope that's what the product is going to be at the end of this year.
Wow, Paulo, thank you so much for this conversation. It was really inspiring. And I really believe in the strength and the importance of your work because I see this tendency, this radical shift somehow into a more balanced world. And therefore, in order for that to happen, and I see these changes happening and accelerating, is the shift in power, no? So at the end, it is about shifting the hierarchies of the power structures, no? As we have known them until now, from vertical structures to more horizontal structures. And I really look forward to finding out what you have been able to develop or co-create as a tool, because I really believe it will be very helpful for us and as Efecto Colibri, as an organization, definitely, and for many, many others, other organizations and movements that want to understand, improve in a systematic way without losing freedom, no? So thank you so much for your contribution, Paulo.
Thank you so much for giving me this space.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. You can find all the references of the episode on our website, www.efectocolibri.com/proyectoco. If you liked it, rate us with 5 stars, leave us a comment, and share it with your network. This will help us reach more people and make social innovation become the norm. So in advance, a big thank you. If you have questions, feedback, or want to introduce us to a guest for the podcast, you can write us directly at ana@efectocolibri.com. See you next time.